And I will kick it off. Thank you, everyone, for joining the regular March public board meeting.
You're welcome.
I will call everyone to order. Before we start, I will take attendance. We'll start with that. According to the faces, according to the order on my screen. Kevin's killing me. Steve. Steve.
Present.
Matt.
Present.
Kevin.
Present.
Ricardo.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
And Sam. Sam was here a moment ago. I'm not seeing him now.
Did he drop
And
off?
I am here as well.
Yep, here it is. Yep, he's here.
And Sam is here?
I'm here, yes.
Yep. And I'm here as well. We also have attending Andrew, Jason, Lauren, and Dawn from the foundation. Did I skip anybody? And Leah and Chris here are here as well. I will remind everyone of our conflict of interest and antitrust statement. As the board consists of individuals from many competing organizations, OWASP and its board shall abide by all applicable antitrust and competition laws. To avoid any perceived or actual conflict of interest or antitrust concerns under U.S. federal, state, or regulations, only the published agenda shall be discussed or voted upon as amended below. If we need to make any changes, rules of order requires 2/3 affirmative vote. If there are any conflicts of interest on any of the topics we're discussing, board members are expected to disclose the conflict of interest and must recuse themselves from any discussion and voting as applicable.
Okay.
All right.
The agenda from now, I do apologize. The link didn't work until about 35 minutes ago. It is now working. I know that Ricardo has seen this, but has everybody else had a chance to have a look, or do you want to just go through it one by one?
Since you just made the link live, I was actually looking at the original page. But since you made the link live now, I'd like us to go through this. You don't need to read all of it, but to read it in as well.
We had a full set of board members. We had myself, Dawn, Harold, Kelly, Lauren, Chris, Leah, Rick Miller, and Jason C. McDonald. There was approval of the minutes was 7-0. The budget was approved. The budget was sent to electronic vote. Yeah, it was sent to electronic vote, so there was that.
We'll read that in afterwards.
Yeah, that's coming. Rick Mello as compliance officer. Rick actually had to go, so we didn't get a chance to vote upon Rick, and I don't see Rick in the list of attendees today, so it may actually be again pushed to the next month.
I asked him to join a little later after we handled some business.
Okay. We had a Belgian Foundation discussion and a Netherlands Foundation discussion, and a Portugal conference and VAT discussion. Corporate packages. There was a presentation made to the board during the strategic board meeting. Just letting you know that was done. There was a Slack discussion, and then there was an adjournment. And then it goes to today. Any missed elements, any votes that we haven't recorded? I don't think so. Okay. So minutes to be approved.
Thank you, Andrew. After we vote on the minutes from February, we also need to read in the e-vote, which we had, and any motions from the special meetings. So first we will vote on the February minutes as just read in, according to the order on my screen. Steve?
Approved, yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Ricardo?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
And that is a yes from me as well.
Okay, the minutes are approved.
Thank you. Next, Andrew, we don't actually have listed here the e-vote on the budget, which
That's because it went into the March minutes. Also the agenda.
in the
So,
agenda.
yeah, so it's in the March agenda.
It's not as an agenda item.
It's the e-votes to be read into minutes.
Yes, yes, I'm saying there are a few of these, right? There's the budget e-vote, and we had a few motions from the special meeting.
The special meeting ones are going to be done when the minutes are available for the special
Right.
minutes.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Right.
Global board. There is the various dates. We'll clean this up, and there will be minutes available from Ricardo once they're actually available, and that will include the votes that were made during that time.
Yep.
So that hasn't gone into the voting history as yet either as well.
All right.
So the motion to approve the 2024 budget, resolved, the budget is approved. It was 7-0. Thank you so much. Sam, you did actually have some discussion. Did you want to continue that discussion now?
Okay, so the discussion that I wanted to lead on the budget, Andrew, do you mind sharing the tab with the budget, please? Because I think the
Oh,
community will query us
that's
on
not
this
the
as well.
budget
It
itself.
should be linked. Yeah, there's a link to Sheets there. It's just there on the right after 7 responses. You have it.
No, that's the vote, Sam.
Is it the vote or is it the actual
Yeah.
document that
But
we?
in the original form, you did link.
Yeah,
Andrew,
let me
if you
just,
go back to that,
Yes.
if you go back to the Google Forms, there was a link there.
yeah, there's one here as well. Just give me a tick.
Yeah, there is a link. You don't have to download it. It should be open. I think we have the Google Sheets version, Andrew, which looks a little bit better because we can actually.
Okay, give me one tick while I find it.
That's the one on which we were voting on.
In the meantime, Sam, can you frame
Yeah.
what your topic is?
Yes, so the topic is around outreach to the development community. So as we already discussed this year, one of our focuses, strategic focuses, should be outreach to the developer community, and that would be OWASP presence at various developer conferences. So this is where I had the question, because as you can see in the budget that we had, the amount of, for example, for swag was almost non-existent. So we have like 400 and 500. So for the whole year, it's quite low. And obviously we do need to have marketing material, merchandise to be present at developer conferences to make sure that our brand as OWASP is visible so developers can remember and understand it. We discussed several times that one of the biggest problems today is that we still have a large part of the development community not knowing what OWASP is, what we do. While some people know what SQL injection is, they have no idea where it came from and how it fits the whole framework, not unaware about the SVS. So we should be working on creating swag for OWASP. We should be creating marketing material. There's also a marketing budget somewhere in a line there, Andrew, as well, which is also very, very low, something like $900 for the year. And the marketing should include all the banners, promotions, T-shirts, swag that we can to inform developers about OWASP, about application security. And I did raise this question with the executive director, with Andrew van der Stok. So the answer I got will actually satisfied me. And again, for the record, I want to say that what Andrew said is that there is an amount of money that the executive director of the foundation has a personal remit to approve. Andrew, can you confirm, is that $10,000, I believe?
There's $10,000, yeah.
That's
so
right.
essentially, for example, I'm sending Jason to PyCon. We unfortunately did not get a table, but we do have the possibility of doing a presentation. And so that will be coming out of my personal remit.
Yes, exactly. So this is
Clarification on presentation, we get an hour slot where we can actually run a free-form event at our own, design
Yeah, it's
during
an
the
unconference.
conference.
Yeah, it's
During the conference.
Yeah, it's an unconference slot.
exactly.
Dawn?
So
Oh, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
Don is the person responsible for swag. Has something to say.
Okay,
Sorry, Dawn, go ahead.
so based on the 35, when it comes to swag, it doesn't come out of my marketing budget. It comes out of, for me, comes out of the co-marketing. We've already gone over the 35 for the year for swag and with the cost to RSA. Me and Andrew have had this discussion. I have stock now for coming up co-marketing events, and he will approve, like if he decides to go somewhere else than the ones we have picked, he will approve them. But we've ordered swag. There is swag in stock for local co-marketing events, local chapter ones that they go. But we are over budget already between the swag and RSA. We spent our budget pretty much, just so everyone knows that. So most things, anything further than me sending, I call it conference in a box type deal, will get approved by Andrew. But I do have stock for local ones in RSA. So we're good at that point, but anything probably, I'm gonna say come July, August, anyone new handed to me, there might be some issues. But we do currently have stock. We're not doing DEF CON and Black Hat, so there's no funds to do that. But I do, just so you know, Sam, I do have stock for co-marketing events.
Okay, so thank you very much, Don. So this is exactly what my concern is. So RSA is an important conference, but it is aimed at the senior decision makers in the cybersecurity industry. And while it's good to have brand presence and make sure that the CISOs are aware of what OWASP is, if we spent all our marketing budget already on this, I would be asking Andrew van der Stok to consider developer events. So PyCon's already been mentioned. Some development conferences might not necessarily be co-marketing and not initiated by the, let's say, local chapter leaders and volunteers. So I think we need to work with the outreach committee, which we discussed at the previous meetings, to identify conferences where we should be, and again, ask for exceptional approval from executive director for marketing for this.
I can't find the hand raise button. Can I suggest, because I know we do have a limited budget, I share your concern with Sam with wanting to get a presence. My other recommendation, aside from PyCon, would be, because we have a ways out, so it would be a little easier to fund, would be GitHub Universe in November. I think we have enough lead time. We could actually get a proper table and a proper presence at GitHub Universe, and that would give us a fairly broad exposure. I would not advise doing any conferences beyond that, however, as we're trying to refine our approach. So just the 2 for the year would be a fairly controlled investment that would give us some insight into what is working, and then we can have a more ambitious outreach plan in 2025. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so totally agree with GitHub. We discussed NDC conference as well, so it is quite a large development conference, and it's kind of split into NDC security and separate NDC development conference. There could be some more, and again, I think probably some effort should be spent in investigating other conferences. A lot of conferences would provide the booth to nonprofits on part of free basis, and all we just need is travel costs, tablecloth for the booth, and swag.
And hotel.
And hotels as well. I do want to point out that, we're talking about very different kinds of conferences. We need to be cognizant of what kind of swag we do there at each one, and what kind of marketing materials. So, for example, at RSA, socks are not going to have a massive effect on these, corporate CISOs type of thing, even though I love them.
That's what you're getting.
I think
the socks will go over with the developers really well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually wearing my OWASP socks right now, coincidentally. But not only that, also any kind of flyers and stuff like that would be have bigger impact for CISAs at RSA rather than developers are not going to take flyers.
Yeah.
Yes, Don?
Okay, so I guess my concern here is this. I pretty much have spent our budget. Andrew can approve, but I really need some, when it comes to doing these, if they're not chapter based, like a chapter leader's take and run, I need time to set this up, especially if you want different swag. So if, like Sam listed a few that I don't know about, I can't do it in 3 weeks and get a turnover. Because just to keep that in mind. So if you have suggestions, Sam's, or the people you want, I need some time to get it on the ground running and get local people to agree to be there. Because my first choice is not to pay to fly everyone in, since we're already, past the budget mark. So just keep that in mind with me, because, it's hard to, we're gonna do it, I want to do it right. So just keep that in mind. I need some time to get it up and running. Thank you.
Absolutely agree, Don, and whenever it's possible, need to be done by local chapters if they're present, and also totally understand there is also an SLA in terms of the how much lead time we need to get the swag sorted. And the next point I wanted to raise about marketing is marketing
hang on
of
one
our
sec,
own
Sam.
events. Sorry,
If,
go ahead.
if I can just interject for 1 minute, Bill has a comment in here and in the chat. Should the outreach committee be discussing these issues? I don't know if we want to address that right now.
Yes, but we're discussing budget and the fact that we have 0 budget left, and this discussion is basically to bring to everyone's attention that there is an exception process
Yeah, but
that can be approved by the executive director. And another thing that Andrew has confirmed is we will re-revise the marketing figures just like everything else, half year, probably after the Lisbon conference, Andrew, where we'll have a bit more understanding of where we are in terms of the
If there's a
revenue.
significant divergence in revenue or expenses, then I'll work with Chris on recasting the budget. So, Chris, I mean, from your perspective, what would be the normal trigger for a recast of the budget?
Typically, we don't do a recast if for favorable changes. If we have unfavorable changes, we want to look very closely at that and do a reforecast of the budget. Typically, the effort and the timing of it, for favorable changes doesn't. But I will say we're exceeding revenue right now, and I don't want to jump into my presentation at all, but I'm very curious, Andrew, to our sponsorship revenue is significantly higher than anticipated at this point in the year.
Mhm.
And I'm curious if it's a timing issue in your opinion, or if we're exceeding revenue goals.
We're exceeding revenue goals. I was looking at the bank balance this morning and I'm just going, well, we've hit $2 million before I thought we'd hit $2 million.
Yeah,
I've actually
yeah,
got
a lot of fun
75.
stuff to share today. So I mean, I think that from what I can see from our cash forecasting and stuff, I mean, I feel like we're going to be in a good place for relatively small budget variances.
Mhm.
If the budget is unfavorable, going into month 4, month 5, I would definitely suggest that we reforecast at a mid-year.
Yeah. So Sam, we're doing better than expected. Therefore, I'm more likely to approve, ad hoc marketing expenses.
More to Bill's
Excellent.
point, the outreach and communications committee, we decided, when they exist, should absolutely be asking for budget to do what they want to do. That's definitely something they should be doing. But right now we don't have a committee. So when they do
Yeah.
come along and they want more budget, that definitely should come from them.
Right, but
Mhm.
if this discussion is Andrew's gonna maybe look at this and approve it, then it sounds like this conversation could just happen between 2 people, right? I guess I don't understand why the board is talking about it unless there's a decision we're being asked to make, or if it's just to inform us, that's fine. But I feel like you could inform us after the fact and say, Andrew, approve this, and this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
If
Sam, I
it's-
believe
The
your
average-
opinion here was
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
we're
mean,
in the weeds about like this isn't
Yeah, I feel the
this
same
isn't the
way.
board summit. This is a board meeting about business, and I don't know. I mean, it's fine. I just feel like we're in the weeds though. Like, and we have other important things to discuss.
Yeah.
In interest of moving things forward, Sam, just to wrap up, I understand your point here is to emphasize that we need to and we should be spending more on swag and marketing as it comes up.
That's right. And because I picked up on this when we were discussing the budget, I think our community will be watching this recording and understanding how it works. We'll have the same question as well. That's the reason why I raised it.
Definitely
And
be spending
obviously,
more.
it should align with our strategy.
Yeah,
Did
and
you
I
have any
totally
other
agree.
issues? Sorry, did you have any other issues with the budget as voted on, Sam, as approved?
No, this was the main one. The lack of the funding for swag marketing in the light of the upcoming conferences, our own conferences, AppSec Lisbon, AppSec San Francisco, and of course our outreach to the development communities.
So I will point out, Sam, that each of those events do have their own swag line item. And with that, Don?
Just a quick question. Since the vote already happened and since there was a motion, do I have to amend anything as like a discussion after when you do the
No.
minutes, or this is just another, it doesn't affect what already happened?
The budget, the motion was to approve the budget as phrased here. This was more of a discussion item around that.
Okay,
Post-
so we just
post-
leave what was done already. Okay,
Just a
thank you.
discussion, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Jason?
Just a quick reminder, and I'm somewhat stating the obvious out loud here, but because outreach is actually a line item point on my own job description, just a reminder that anything regarding outreach, please keep me in the loop on, because not only am I a principal software engineer and well connected in the programming community already as a speaker and an author, but the overall outreach strategy is a central pillar of my work. So anything the board wants or sees needs to be done in terms of outreach, please keep me in the loop as soon as possible. I cannot adapt to things that I'm not forewarned of. So I definitely want to make sure I have a role in these conversations in the future.
don't worry,
100%,
Jason.
Jason. Thanks for
You'll
that.
be the staff liaison for the outreach committee once it's reformed.
Outreach and communications.
Outreach communications.
All right.
Okay.
With,
No worries.
with all that said, I'd like to move us forward to the next item, which is the board summary and finance report.
Yep. Let me just close the tab. Okay, we had the strategic board meeting. A lot of the last month was preparing various presentations for the board. I think the strategic board meeting was incredibly useful. Certainly being together we got a lot done. Very, very long days. I think if I have one comment, Avi, please make them shorter in the future.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
You're a slave driver.
I know. That's what I said. Optimizing use of our limited time there.
We definitely got a lot of stuff done, which is amazing. And I think I'm looking forward to seeing the summarized minutes from Ricardo. We are actively recruiting for the director of projects. I've formulated a proper job description, which I have circulated with the board. If there's any comments, please make them by the end of the day so I can actually get them up onto, well, provide them to you, but also provide them to interested candidates. We actually have about 3 or 4 who've emailed me. So if you do actually have some other candidates very interested in finding out, as we discovered yesterday with the outage that we experienced, we need this role like yesterday. So it won't be some, theoretical role that I'll be putting off for a few months. This is a role that I'd like to hire for sooner than later. With that focus on product management we talked about at the strategic board meeting. The bylaws update, we've had about 20 of the directors sign, which is an amazing response. And Avi, I have relayed your concerns to the lawyers. I think you've seen the response. Okay, so fundamentally, we can continue with the process but I think, you know, some of the issues that you've addressed in there, it might be worth correcting for the record. The reality is that the contraction and expansion ended up with the right number of people and the right people named. So I don't think we're in any dire difficulties there. It's just simply making sure that the record is corrected. And I think that means maybe we need a history tab on the OWASP website that actually describes all of the appointments and making sure that we've got an accurate corporate history.
For the benefit of those that were not CC'd on the email, I noticed that some of the dates and appointments and order of stuff of directors was not accurate, at least in the last few years that I happen to have personal knowledge of. And that means that some of the dates, like some of the statements were actually wrong there. So Andrew, does that mean we want to update that and have everyone resign, or should we just continue forward with as it is?
I'll touch base with Russ and find out what he wants to do. At the end of the day,
His opinion.
yeah. The reality is that we don't have very good history of our beginnings either. And so some of the start and end dates of the earliest boards are also murky. So it's the best efforts that we've got. So I'll find out from Russ what he wants to do. But the fact that we've had 20 folks sign is a good sign that if we have to re-sign, it'll be okay.
I wonder if it's also a sign that they didn't actually read it.
Well, they may only be they may only be familiar with their own board terms.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Well, and like when I was on the board the first go round, there weren't even terms for the board. You just were elected till you stopped being on the board. So like it was extremely informal in the early days. So
sure
I can see people not remembering dates because they weren't particularly important or followed a schedule in the early days.
Yeah, I mean, I got many of the dates from the times when people said I'm stepping down or, you know, a new person was appointed, and that was in a mailing list. Okay, I'll follow up with Russ. I do want to close it out at the end of March. I think we've got enough signatures if it is not to be redone. If it's to be redone, we will obviously give it a bit more time. The VZW, we've actually had advice from Lauren that we've been given a VAT exemption by the vendors. So Bill and I have agreed to hold off dissolving the entity until after June when Lisbon takes place. So fundamentally, off the keyboard. Sorry, I have a very exciting cat who likes standing on the keyboard. Oh boy. So
Yes.
we're waiting. I just wanted to highlight to folks who didn't receive the email, we have started the certificate of deposit process. I will work with the bank to open additional certificates of deposit. They're not as easy to open as I thought, but once you've got them, they can just renew. So we are going to make around $800 for every certificate deposit we have every 2 months. So that's better than what we're doing at the moment, which is not earning very much interest at all. So I'll work with Chris to work out the total number of certificates of deposit we want and what sort of staggering we want them to have so we can access money if we need to dissolve the certificate of deposit when they mature to bring the money back in. Now, as Chris intimated, we are actually doing better than expected with our revenue, but there is only a fixed number of sponsors. I think what's happened is that the sponsors have actually responded very favorably, and Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, to make sure that they secure the best possible positions on the floors. So we shouldn't count our chickens before they've all hatched. But at the end of the day, basically, it is pleasing that we've got the money so early in the year. The virtual staff summit will happen when Kelly gets back from annual leave. So that's early April. Yep, Lauren just said you are correct about the sponsors. They're all responding very well to being able to choose the best positions on the floor. We've had a problem with Intuit. Intuit tried debiting our account. They were blocked because I wasn't checking their bank account over a weekend. And they then decided that our entire account was blocked. I've been working with them for about 2 weeks. So not more income, just earlier. That is correct. But it does give us an indication of the sort of income that we might experience throughout the year. We just need to be cognizant that it is income that we will not get later in the year. It's happened earlier. I think I've unblocked it. I will try to raise them again today, but fundamentally that's an operational matter. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because obviously the accounting system is primary thing, and Chris and Leah may not have known that we were currently blocked, but I just wanted to keep people in the loop. And with that, Dawn.
As everyone knows, you know, Harold's last day was on Thursday. Slack is no longer a free service. So we started making the payments for that. That's basically it for operations right now. Just, yeah, the other stuff is day to day on that. So anything major for me for operations that they need to know.
So the only other one that's sort of a late breaking one is we're still working out how best to find the number of leaders who are not members to report to the board, because you did ask for that to be monthly reported.
We can run, we talked about that before during our one-on-one. I can run a copper report, should be able to do it. I'll have it to you tomorrow what I can do. There shouldn't be any issues running that report because it's just the field. So there should be no issues running that report.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. Chris.
You muted, Chris.
Right.
Thank you. I did not realize you guys had made a decision to purchase certificates of deposit. So I do have a little bit of presentation with the new cash flow report and kind of our suggestions regarding your
It was just purchased in March. It's fine.
cash.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and please jump in if you guys have any questions. But just starting off with a statement of financial positions, I did want to go through the financials this month and then go through the cash flow forecast and how it relates to the budget. So we have a little bit more this time. So if I'm going too fast, just let me know if you have any questions. There was very little change in the statement of financial position for the month of February. Cash did decrease by $83,000. And that was offset by a decrease in $35,000 in liabilities from accounts payable. So, and again, we'll get into the cash flow forecast in more detail. We did have a net loss for the month, contributing to the decrease in cash. Very little change in other current assets, and also very little change in liabilities. Like I said, accounts payable went down, credit card balance went up. And total net asset change and total change on the balance sheet was $37,000 from January. Jumping into the statement of activities for the month. Again, income is up significantly, and good to hear from Andrew. I was very curious about whether it was the timing or additional income that were way over budget, but it sounds like the number of sponsorships per event are finite, so it's really just a timing issue rather than an increase in our anticipated net revenue for the year. Is that fair to say, Andrew?
It is, yes.
Okay, very good. We'll have more detail as we get down to the budget summary, which is kind of where I think that's where all the meat and potatoes are. But total income for the month was $204,000. With year-to-date income of $455,000. That's more than double our projection at this point, as you'll see when we get into the budget versus actuals report.
Mhm.
There was,
Avi's got a question.
yes,
This is more of a comment than a question. Regarding the conference sponsors, the fact that there was such high interest and they jumped in signifies to me two things: that we need to expand for future events to have more options for sponsors and to raise the prices accordingly. Just a point of note.
I agree. Not that that matters. Okay, anything else on that? Okay, we did have an uptick in conference expenses for the month, which was anticipated in the budget. We had some deposits go out during the month of February. Other expenses were up were relatively flat. We had a small increase in payroll related expenses. And there was an overage in accounting that we didn't anticipate. And I believe that is an audit invoice that needs to be corrected and moved to 2023. It's for last year's audit, and it was a late invoice. Leah, if you could look into that.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to point out in expenses was the services. This is, we had $28,000 in services here, and that were not budgeted. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's related to grants income. So it's really dependent upon when the projects want to spend the money. So yeah, probably an oversight on my part.
Ugh. Uh-oh. Sorry, you guys. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second. Leah, can you just try to pull up the management report?
Let me just make sure Lee's a co-host.
All right, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, Lee's a co-host.
Yeah, we can see the screen now.
Yeah, if you can zoom in, Leah, and go to page 6.
Yep.
Awesome.
Maybe too much.
Total expenses for the month of February were $242,000. And again, we had a $37,000 net loss for the month. And if you continue on to the budget versus actuals, Leah. Can you zoom in a little bit and we'll
Yeah.
just go through? Okay, there we go. So you can see the biggest variance from an income standpoint is sponsorships. We're way ahead on that of schedule on sponsorship income at this point, 365%. Total income year to date is 455,000. Budgeted year to date income at 198,000. And again, I don't think it sounds like that's not going to be additional revenue for the year, but the timing's great and having the cash in the bank is great. Scrolling down to expenses, I think Sam stole my thunder. Outreach was the segment that was significantly over budget so far year to date. And honestly, we've exceeded a lot of the budget for the year. Swag is exceeded for the year. And we're halfway through the travel budget. There is some swag later, but year to date, we had 0 budgeted for that. So, again, conference expenses have gone up, but are in budget and aligned with the timing that we expected them to be. I do think, I do want to point out, we're doing a lot of good data collection this year. We've worked closely with Andrew and Dawn. We'll be able to track the timing of expenses by conference a lot more accurately to project that in future years, and also project income and expenses by conference for a profitability viewpoint. So I think we're making all the right data points to move into next year with more information and more accurate information. So really appreciate the partnership with Andrew and Dawn in getting that in place, and looking forward to and Lauren as well, and Kelly as well. Sorry, I don't want to leave anybody out of that. They've worked really hard, and we're tracking it closely. So I hope that'll be good information moving forward. Again, not a lot of budget variances again.
Excuse me, Chris. So
Yes.
there's a variance that was kind of mentioned, but I don't think was reflected in the budget yet. Andrew already mentioned about Slack, that we have another $30,000 bill for now.
Yes.
It's not in the budget yet, right?
No, Slack is in that we added $40,000 for the fiscal year to the budget. That was one of the changes we made when we reviewed it. So that is in the budget. I'm not sure exactly where it is.
Excellent, thank you.
But yeah, it definitely is in the budget for the year. Operating expenses running under budget currently. There's not a lot of unexpected in the budget year-to-date actuals, other than the timing of the revenue. We're currently running under in expenses by total projected expenses, or total expense year-to-date, $20,000, sorry, under budget year-to-date on expenses. I just don't want anybody to get too excited because we're so over in revenue. Again, it's a timing issue. I don't think we're that over. I was hoping that I could have different news. But budget is right where we expected. Other than the outreach expenses, I don't see any variances or any issues of concern. We did share this month. Leah, if you can go to the share drive and share the Excel version of the cash flow forecast. And I think if you can go to 125, we were able to share the cash flow forecast for the month now that we have the budget in place. And I did want to talk to you guys a little bit about your excess cash on hand and our suggestions for what might be a good move for that. But is there any questions about the cash flow forecast in general before I jump into that? Basically, we have our revenue by month and our expenses by month, and we're actualizing it every month. And line 100 is showing you the ending cash we anticipate for the remainder of the year. So it looks like we're going to be moving up from a cash flow standpoint for the rest of the year. There's not a lot of non-cash assets or liabilities of any significance on the balance sheet. So I feel like this is a good reflection from a cash and accrual standpoint. But there are large variances. My caveat here is that you have large variances, obviously due to conferences on when we receive revenue and also when we receive expenses. So everything I've said is based on when we expect the lowest, or I'm about to say honestly, is about when we expect to have the lowest amount of cash on hand, which is May. And just being very cognizant of the month of October, when our expenses are going to be double what they typically are. And that there may be variances in the timing and receipt of revenue, although that seems to be coming ahead rather than behind, knock on wood.
Yeah.
We suggest that you have 6 months cash on hand at any time. So if you're looking for long-term investment opportunities, right now, looking at May 2024 being the lowest cash on hand that we anticipate. And this is on line 104, column C, reflecting 6 months cash on hand would be 1.589. So from a long-term investment standpoint, and I don't know if that's something you all are interested in, we wouldn't suggest investing more than $111,000 at this point.
Mhm.
That would be stocks and bonds and not something that's readily available. Although I think that with the forecast for the rest of the year, we could potentially invest more moving forward. We don't suggest that you partake in any long-term investments for anything that you're planning on spending for a capital expenditure or a devoted project for the next 5 years. So if you have plans for this money specifically in the next 5 years, we wouldn't suggest a long-term investment.
Yeah.
But we do suggest that anything over 60 days cash in hand, and that's column E, you can see that would be $522,000. So would be 60 days cash on hand. So $1.1 million right now. We would suggest that you move to some kind of short-term investment that will create income for you, but as long as it's cash readily available to be transferred to the checking account. So money market or an insured cash sweep account. It sounds like you're already purchasing certificates of deposit, so that's fine. But as long as the money's readily available and can be accessed to transfer into the checking account, we really suggest that I think that you're safe if you keep 60 days cash on hand.
Right. Okay. So realistically, with May only a month and a bit away, might hold off on investing more in certificates of deposits. I'll talk to you about the money market option, probably post-May. That way we basically get past our lowest cash flow month and we can safely put some of the money away.
Yeah, and I do really recommend that you look at insured cash sweep accounts. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but basically the money's available to you through one account, but the money's dispersed to multiple accounts and multiple banks. You can do a little bit of research on it, but you guys do have quite a bit of cash on hand, so we want to make sure that you don't have any exposure and that you're covered by FDIC limits on anything that you invest and that you don't have more than the $250,000 in any bank account. So I would suggest that you do some research on insured cash sweep accounts. But that's our cash flow forecast. We will actualize this every month with actual expenses that have come in and current cash, ending cash from the prior month. Any questions about that? I'm excited about the outlook for the remainder of the year. I think from a cash standpoint, we're in a really good place.
Fantastic. I'd like to hear that.
And it seems like revenue from conferences is, as long as we stay aligned in revenue, I think it's going to be a very good year. Any questions?
Cool.
Okay, I was very excited to get the budget completed and able to get a cash flow forecast. That I think that's important for an organization. So, and once we got it put together, I was excited with the way it looked. So very good.
Yep. No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Avi, just real quickly, the membership has, let me just go through that real quick. The membership has risen again, a healthy increase in 1 year memberships, which is great. We still continue to get more and more complimentary members. At some point, we need to think about the fact that many of our members, like at this point, nearly 20% of them are complimentary, and whether or not they get a vote. Because it could actually affect the outcome, because that actually is a greater number of people than the number of people who normally vote in our elections. So if you're going to change the qualifications of voters, you need to do that with the new bylaws. rather than the old bylaws. The old bylaws are silent on whether or not complementary members actually have a vote. It's just more or less, it's unusual for a membership organisation to allow non-financial members to make changes to the organisation, that's all. But that's a discussion for a future day. Lauren, any events news that we need to share with the board?
For
It's-
the sake of time, I'm gonna say no, because I can see in the comments that other people are waiting to present, and I don't have anything pressing, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Apologies
you,
before we
guys.
got into that. Sam had his hand raised about the previous topic. Web members. You're on mute, Sam.
Very quickly on the previous topic of memberships, in the budget report presented by Chris, we saw that there was an last month there was an increase of $25,000 from lifetime memberships. However, on the slide that I was just sharing just before this one, there were 21 new lifetime members, so which is $10,000, not 25,000. So just wondering where's the discrepancy coming from.
So that comes, like, it's actually the combined number of members. So it's not just lifetime members, it's actually, and 25,000 sounds like a corporate membership, not necessarily an individual membership. So without Kelly being here, I'd actually have to defer. I can get you an answer on notice. Is that going to be okay?
No problem. It just basically, I saw on Chris's report, there was a line on lifetime memberships hitting 25,000 last month. So I
Okay.
just did that up. It's okay.
I'll
Thanks,
have a
Andrew.
look. Mhm.
Another note that I want to make, Andrew, about your comment about complementary members. You're right. That's a whole big other topic that we need to cover. And the bylaws, the new bylaws do specify complementary members, who are, by the way, are some of our most active members as leaders, don't get a vote. This is the way the bylaws are being voted on. That said, there is a bit of fuzzy area around the force majeure policy, which basically gives, it basically waives fees for regular members. I think these are still being counted in complementary members, even though these are technically full members. They're just not paying.
Yeah, they're complementary members in our system. We don't actually have a second category for them.
If we are defining them as separate in the bylaws, then we might need to just assign them as full members that haven't paid, because that was the policy waives fees. Doesn't make them complementary.
Yeah, with 1,000 odd people, it's going to be difficult for us to go make that change. Anyway.
Yep. All right, we'll get to that at a later discussion. With all that said, coming back to Lauren about events. Sorry for cutting you off before.
No worries. I was just saying, for the sake of time, I don't have anything pressing, but since we have Global AppSec Lisbon coming up in just 3 short months, just to give everyone a brief overview, we are sitting right where we need to be right now. So registration is looking great. Sponsorship is fantastic. So all looking good, knock on wood, for Lisbon. But if you guys had any questions about any of the other events, I just don't want to jump into each one individually, because in the chat, it looks like we have 2 other people to follow. And I don't want to bite into their time. But does anybody have any questions about any of the events?
Under the assumption you're going to hang out with us for the duration.
Yes.
We can always ask you if we have questions later that pop up, and that way we can get to the people queued up. I appreciate your being flexible. That's awesome.
Yeah, no worries. I'm here the whole time.
Okay, perfect. Me too.
All right.
Lauren,
Yes.
I do have a question, and I think that was raised by Chris as well, that the amount of sponsorship we receive for Lisbon is finite, because, well, the floor space gets sold out quickly, right? So we've no longer a single square inch left, though. But I know there are some other sponsorships that we are selling, things like lanyard logos, lunch logos, everything else. Are they all sold out? And can we maybe come up with some other creative ways? Because it looks like there are still companies who are willing to sponsor both Lisbon and San Francisco, but yeah, they are unable to get in at this point.
Yes. I can't speak specifically about like the a la carte options that are out there. I do think that we have a few set up. I am checking into a few other options, especially in the registration area. It was hard to predict because I didn't physically go to Lisbon to check out the space, but it looks like our registration area in the foyer is large. So I have the venue doing a space study right now to see if maybe we could fit in a few more tables for startup companies or getting creative with a different tier. And until I hear back, I just have to wait. But I will be happy to share with you when I do
Yeah.
hear from them after
And
they
the question was on the food and drink bill, because obviously we saw quite a large food and drink bill. Can we get sponsors to pay for lunch, for drinks in exchange of their logos being displayed?
So we do this already. We ask them if they want to sponsor a lunch, a break, whatever it may be, and we do the logos. They can get creative with coffee breaks. I think that moving forward, especially for the US Global AppSex, we may have to get a little more creative and maybe just make our breaks, especially our coffee breaks, a little bit more basic and not as elaborate. Because if we're looking to grow the conference, that expense is just going to keep getting bigger. So that is something that I have my eye on moving forward. So I'm looking to get that down a little bit. But we do that. Unfortunately, when we do those sponsorships though, Sam, it doesn't cover the entire cost of that particular food and beverage event. It contributes a little bit, not the whole thing.
So that was my question. Can we actually then make sure that it covers and
I would love that.
allow more sponsors to get in
I
to
would
cover all our expenses by sponsors?
Yes, I think that would be fantastic. And it'll be something I can discuss more with Kelly. We would have to increase the cost of that sponsorship quite a bit. So maybe we would look at what else we can do for the
Or
company.
make it tiered, basically. So just introduce an extra tier.
I'm hoping that by Lisbon we'll have the events committee that can dive into, and I know they have some great ideas to work with you on that, Lauren.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for Lauren about the events in general? Wonderful. I would like to move on. Andrew, did you have more to share about that report? Because I'd like to skip ahead and move to Rick Miller, who's joined us.
I don't. Feel free to continue.
All right. So with that, I would like to jump ahead in our agenda as agreed, and approach the motion to approve Rick Mello as compliance officer. Rick, I see that you are here waiting. Can I ask you to jump in and introduce yourself to the group that might not know you?
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name's Rick Mello. I'm from Bermuda, just like Ricardo. I've been in IT and cybersecurity for over 20 years now. I started my own consulting company just under a year now. So working on growing that business, basically doing virtual chief information security officer services, various assessments, some software sales and stuff like that. So just starting off with a small consultancy and growing from there. I've had a pretty diverse technical background, various cybersecurity positions as well as IT positions. And I'm looking forward to see how I can help the OWASP Foundation.
With that, I'll open up to the board to ask questions. Rick, are you able to turn your camera on? Would that be a problem?
Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of feeling under the weather. I'm having some bad muscle pain, so
No worries.
yeah. Just one of those off days for me. Sorry.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Rick?
So Rick, many of our issues that come through the compliance officer position are related to our bylaws and our policies, in particular the code of conduct. Have you had a chance to review those?
I haven't as of yet, but I definitely be willing to, review those and provide my input as needed.
Okay. And my last question would be, assuming that the board approves you, can you please undertake the board source training to make sure that you have the same training as the board?
Yes, that's no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Together with that, are you currently an active financial member of OWASP?
Yes, I believe I signed up for the complimentary membership. Yeah.
Does
Can
anybody
we-
else?
it-
Go ahead.
Sorry, Andrew, can you check that? And yeah, can you check that? And what is policy on an officer? Can they be complimentary? Just double check that for me.
So that's a fine question. Give me a tick.
While Andrew is checking that out, does anybody else have any questions for Rick?
I do. So, Rick, just continuing the topic on the code of conduct. What can you tell us about your experience in general with dealing with topics and issues relating from code of conduct, whether that was at the conferences, events, or with organizations, and any experience of dealing with issues of ethical behavior, conflict of interest, or compliance with laws and regulations?
Yeah, I've had a couple of incidents I've had to deal with in my career as a manager. Disputes between employees, and pretty much all the time is a misunderstanding or a breakdown in communication. So sometimes it's more difficult than others because we all know people have varying personalities, and that all comes into play. So for me, I have psychology is one of my hobbies, so I try and study people a bit and learn them and try and use that to see if I can help mediate and resolve the issues. So I've been able to do that successfully a couple of times, and then another time I think it just kept on being ongoing, and warnings were given, and then a person was let go. But a legitimate course of action as well if it's needed. So I do have some experience.
And what is your approach to mediation, Rick?
Just basically, I think getting the story separately first from each party, and then any other involved parties. And then taking that all in and see if it's possible to bring the two parties together and see if you can just let them talk it out, lay down the rules, no name calling and stuff like that, and see if they can, we could work it out together. So that's more of my style of mediation.
And how would you handle a case where, I mean, this, what you say sounds great and it assumes good intent, which is a good principle. But how would you handle a situation where there's not good intent from both sides?
Where there's not good intent?
Yes.
Well, I think that needs to be taken into consideration too, and most likely escalated above me to see what course of action can be taken. If people have malicious intent, I'm sure there's checks and balances in place and proper procedures to go through. Just finding out what those are.
Any other comments or questions for anyone?
do have a question, which is probably to Andrew. In terms of bylaws, because previously compliance committee was a committee, and I will remember we had this committee, which is not a committee, but we do have a committee policy which defines a lot of rules. Do we need to have a piece of policy defining compliance officers as opposed to compliance committee with its responsibility? And does it need to be voted on by the board first?
So the current bylaws, the old ones, don't have anything about, let me just find out.
Compliance
honestly,
committee is mentioned a lot in the code of conduct policy, Andrew, just as a hint.
yeah, but we
They might
abolished
want
we
update.
abolished the committee. That's the problem. There are now compliance officers, and officers under the old bylaws don't have nothing saying that need to be a member. I'm looking through the current bylaws, like the new ones, and okay, so in the new ones, it's a privilege of individual membership, which means that as long as individual membership is defined as including complementary members, there's no reason why it would be a problem.
Except the new bylaws specify the complementary members are separate from individual members as a separate class.
Let me have a look at that.
While you're looking, Don?
Sorry, you already voted on him being a member in October. You already approved this.
We approved that he would join the compliance committee as it was then defined, pursuant to him becoming a member.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure because I thought I was losing it there for a second. Okay.
Yeah, so this is kind of procedural details, important to get done, but more to the point, less of a personal interview issue. So I think we need to follow up on that, Andrew. If you can continue, find us a straight about that. Does anybody else have any questions for Rick about that?
I'm good. I was at the last vote, so I got no
Okay.
new questions.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
the new bylaws are complementary members can't be officers.
Rick, are you opposed to joining as a paid individual member, or is that an issue?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
Thank you. That's the simplest possible way of resolving that issue.
Exactly. In which case I suggest we move to vote pursuant to Rick becoming a paid individual member. And shall I go ahead and share my screen here?
What's the membership fee? Sorry,
it's $50 a year.
Okay, sure. It's not bad.
Yeah.
I'm just updating the motion as is in the agenda. Pursuant to.
Wait, can you just let us know once you join as a member so I can update all the records? And then I'll send you a list of things I'll need from you.
Okay. I'm in the, is there a way to convert my membership, or do I have to just cancel that one and start over? Or?
No, just go to renew and just use the paid option.
And it'll update it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So the motion reads as follows: resolve that Rick Mello is approved as an OWASP compliance officer pursuant to Rick becoming a paid individual member. So this vote will actually kick in once Rick officially becomes a paid member. All right.
Can you do that?
I'm sorry, Rick, Ricardo, what?
Can you send me what you just wrote?
I just sent it in the chat here. Got it. Ricardo, are you still willing to sponsor that?
Sorry, say again.
Are you still willing to sponsor that motion?
Absolutely.
All right, and I am happy to second that as well. So take a vote unless there's any objection to that, according to the faces on my screen. Matt?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Ricardo?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
And a yes for me as well. Motion passes 6-0. Steve is absent. Congratulations, Rick. Thank you very much.
That's
All
right.
right, thanks. Thanks everyone. Look forward to working with you all.
Hope you feel better, man.
All right, thanks a lot.
Don't take this the wrong
Hope you
way.
guys-
I have working together a lot.
All right, not too much, not too much.
Let's keep it boring for you.
It's been quiet. Don't,
Boring
don't
is-
push it. Compliance
Easy-
has
easy-
been quiet.
Yeah, ease me into it.
All right. With all that said, I'd like to move forward to the next item, motion to approve the OWASP learning platform. Jason, can you give us some background on that?
Yeah, I
I'm-
can.
Just let
Sorry,
me
what?
make you a co-host.
Okay.
Done.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Now, to be clear, I am presenting all of the information I have on this, on this proposal. Be advised, however, that what I'm looking for here specifically pursuant to the agenda item is the approval of acquiring access to the learning platform itself. The other components of this, I am well aware may the board may further weigh in. We may revise as we learn more, but this is just the current plan. Okay, so briefly, reason to have a training platform in OWASP. 24% of the community. Current update on that survey, we've had some more respondents, so this has moved to second place, but it's still very closely tied with local and regional events and what people would like to see more of. They keep alternating places. So a large portion of the community seem to want more virtual training. We also know Lauren has pointed out that corporate supporters are wanting more remote training for employees as well. I believe it's Lauren that told me that, either Lauren or Kelly. I think it was
Kelly.
Lauren?
No, that'd be me. I don't do
You?
pork. That'd be Kelly.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Anyway, chapter and project leaders also need some better internal training as well. Chapter and project leaders often don't know policies and best practices. So training them better in a way that's going to engage them, because truth is people don't read PDFs. Also, just in the general cybersecurity landscape, things like CRA is coming, where we need good training solutions for developers. This is becoming a requirement in the EU, etc. So we have a really good opportunity to fulfill the part of our mission statement to educate. So to that aim, can everyone see my screen, by the way? Is that actually sharing? Okay, so to that aim, I am proposing what I'm calling, working title, calling OWASP Academy. That's just some generative AI, so don't put too much stock in that there. It is official OWASP approved cybersecurity courses is the main portion there, which would contain vetted material from top trainers. We have a number of them in our organization. I'll get to that in a moment. It'll also allow us to provide certificates, OWASP certificates, for completing courses or programs. This is not just I'm not talking about stopping at like certificate of completion stuff. I'm talking about actual OWASP certificates, like we've been talking about, or you've been talking about. And this would allow us to do internal training for chapter and project leaders. So the technology in question that I'm looking at is a platform called BlendEd. I would like to point out off the bat that I looked at several options, talked to a couple, but BlendEd, we are currently directly working with the CEO and the lead engineer at BlendEd. They're very excited to work with OWASP and are actually customizing how components of the platform are working so that it meets OWASP needs. They're really looking forward to working with us specifically. They're well familiar with OWASP Foundation's work. So BlendEd is built on OpenEdX. It is allows for multimedia and immersive content. So it's literally not just you click a button and watch a video. it has various interactive components that require and ensure engagement. So it's not just click a button, walk away and get a cup of coffee. You are actually engaging with the material through a variety of forms of content. It also integrates well with Zoom, so we can have live components if desired. It supports adaptive assessment, collaborative learning, project-based learning, certificates. It has apps for desktop and native Android and iOS. Excellent content authoring features. And detailed analytics to the point that you can actually even figure out what portions of a particular video people are watching and when they're dropping off. Because it's based on OpenEdX, the core is open source and extensible. So that means we also can expand this platform ourselves beyond what BlendEd has done. It integrates with our stack, including Stripe and Google. And they have, for additional costs, they do also have course developers. So if any trainers are feeling stuck on how do I make the content work in this format, there are options there too. Importantly, again, they're willing to work with us one-on-one to make this work for what we want to do, which is more than I can say for some of the other people I was talking to. They're also willing to give us a significant discount. So there is a base cost. And then beyond that is typically $2 per month per user. But they are redefining how the monthly active users is calculated so that only when someone actually signs up for a course, ergo pays the seat fee, do we get charged. So, because otherwise this runs into a lot of money. This would be impossible for us to fund upfront. But because we can charge for courses and because BlendEd is willing to work with us and to ensure that we don't have any upfront cost, this stays very, very low. We don't actually eat this. This gets absorbed into course fees. But we don't want to charge for internal training. So chapter and project leader training, etc. I'm estimating at most about 1,000 users a month. So we're looking about at most about $700 a month for this platform. I don't think 1,000 people a month are going to be doing internal training most of the time either. Brief note, I will follow up at a later date with more information, but I did look into proctoring as well. There's a platform called Measure Learning that is integrated with BlendEd. They do test proctoring, psychometric assessment, and test writing. I am waiting on a quote from them. However, based on some third-party information, it looks like proctoring is roughly $30 a user. And then just looking far afield, if we really go down this road at a later date, so not this year, but at a later date, once we've got some courses, once we got some traction, I would strongly recommend we actually bring on a director of learning to oversee this entire endeavor, because this is a full-time job in and of itself. Something I can certainly, something I can do in the foreseeable future, but at some point it will become a full-time job in itself. So bear that in mind, because ideally things should be priced such that the revenue of the courses fully covers the cost of the director of learning, therefore turning this into either a break even or ideally a profit, another source of revenue for OWASP. Live remote training can continue as is, but it can actually start going through BlendEd because it uses Zoom. We can collect payments. So the same live remote training we already do, we can actually continue to do, but we can do it through BlendEd. So that does not have to change. So I talked about being able to absorb, being able to recover those costs. So my estimated seat costs here, if we give someone, say, 3 months access to a course, which should be sufficient time in many cases for completing a course, that would be $6 per seat. For a more certificate of focusing, so for example, we could develop an ASVS certificate. In something like that, you may want a longer period, like 6 months of access, plus you have the proctoring for the test itself. So that would be a seat cost of $42. That would be what we would be paying out. So we want to price accordingly so that that is covered up front. Also talking about pricing, I looked at the landscape, and the reality is there is not a lot of competition in this area. There's a lot of low quality training material out there, a lot of AI stuff, a lot of unvetted content. Udemy is comes to a lot of people's minds, but there's a lot of low quality content on there, and it does not pay the instructors well. Pluralsight and LinkedIn Learning are on the other end, but they don't tell us how much they pay. It's royalties. I'm a published author, so I can tell you the industry standard for royalties on any sort of content is between 10 and 20%. And again, you only get certificates of completion. The only one that really offers vetted certificate-bearing training that I could find in cybersecurity, unless I'm unaware of something, is Coursera, which is running about $49 to $79 a month. So with that framing, this is just these are made up numbers, but this kind of gives us an idea. If we set a 50% trainer royalty, this means we can get our top trainers to actually develop courses, not a minor effort, it's a significant effort, but that way it is worth their time because it is ongoing passive income. They create the course once, they keep it up to date, and they're getting regular revenue for the effort. So we're attracting the best content in the industry. So with that in mind, members should have the steepest discount. You know, we still, because you saw the cost of this, we cannot offer this for free and break even, not by any stretch of the imagination. But we can still keep it fairly low by industry standards. Corporate supporters, we can also provide a discount for them as well, and then the external seat fee, like just off the street company would pay the most. So running a scenario where we had more members than anybody else taking it, say 2,000 members, maybe it's a super popular course, 100 corporate supporters, 25 external seats, we make out with about 11,000 in revenue. Again, we want to raise enough to be able to pay for a director of learning if we want to be able to go down the route of accreditation. Trainer would walk away with 23, about 23,000, which is, and this is a single run. So that's significant considering the effort involved. This is a really good case scenario, to be fair, but I wanted to give an idea of kind of the picture. Corporate oriented, so a corporation, maybe this would be something that the corporations would really want to get their employees trained on. A single course, again, we're looking at better margins at that point. So when we market outward, when we market externally, we're going to get better revenue. No surprise there. And by the way, for comparison, we charge about $505 a seat for our live virtual training. So that said, these prices are incredibly low by OWASP standards, but they're, as you saw, they're pretty reasonable compared to other self-paced training. Our live virtual training would not change in pricing. I'm not suggesting that. Full-blown certification course, so let's imagine ASVS as a certification course. And again, by certification course standards, these are really good prices. We're looking at, so $100 for a member, $250 for a corporate supporter, but $400 for an external student. In this scenario with 2,000 members, 300 corporate supporters, and 20 external, we're making about $44,900 on that certification course. Again, how many people take it is completely made up here, but just some idea of ballpark. Avi.
Jason, that would be just training for the certification, not the certification itself.
This, in theory, this includes the cost of the proctored exam. So yes, this could be for the certification itself. Asterisk, I am not including the cost of the psychometric analysis. So that would have to be factored in as well. But I figured I'd start with some low numbers and we could go from here and raise them. Because that way we're kind of seeing where we're operating in terms of margins.
As long as I already interrupted you, Jason, according to the screen, are you saying that we charge the corporate supporters more per seat than we would an individual member?
Yes. So an individual member would pay the lowest amount. Corporate supporters would pay a little bit more, but they still have a discount. Basically, the idea is that being a corporate supporter gives you a discount, and this is just a totally wild example. We could offer varying levels of discount depending on the level of corporate supporter, but this would be like we could offer seat discounts for corporate supporters as as a benefit for corporate supporters. They get seat discounts for their employees.
Oh, I see. So this is a discount versus the full price, but more expensive than a member price.
Right, exactly. Now the trick here, Kelly pointed out very robustly. The trick here is that we want to price. We have to be very careful how we price this, because we do not want to create a scenario where the corporate supporter goes, "Oh well, instead of becoming a corporate supporter, why don't we just buy $250 memberships?" Because then we got shortchanged. We obviously don't want to create that scenario. So we have to be very strategic about our pricing here. But I think there are ways to do it in a way that we give our members a significant discount, give a good discount to corporate supporters, and then still charge a reasonable amount for just someone off the street who wants this course. I play with a bunch of different numbers, and then these are the ones I liked in terms of showing margins. But like I said, these are just examples. And I would also like to point out with this kind of revenue that if we were to run, actually I ran out of time to actually, so I'm plugging this into my calculator on my phone. But if you were looking at going back to just the course, if we wanted to be able to break even on actually hiring a director of learning out of this, you would be looking at kind of five successful courses would be a break-even point at these numbers for just like single courses. So,
Jason, are you saying that from my understanding, are you saying the courses run a specific amount of time, or are you saying whenever people show up?
Whenever people show up, but they have 3 months in which to complete it. So this would be rolling income too. This would be repeated rolling income.
Gotcha.
So the course development process, what I would recommend that if we go down this route is, again, that 50% helps us to attract good trainers. It's worth their time and effort. Because I talked to Jim Manico, and his primary concern is, well, I don't want, this could compete with me. I wouldn't probably donate something like this because I'd be creating material that'd be competing with me. So paying the trainers makes a lot of sense, because yes, this would be competing with them. So they should be getting paid for their work, and heaven knows it's a lot of work. So we're recruiting trainers to develop these courses. We're offering a significantly higher rate than most platforms. So we're basically convincing them, don't bother with developing for Udemy, don't bother with developing for LinkedIn Learning. We can pay you better, and it gets the OWASP stamp on it. And then we're attracting them to our platform. Get higher quality content. Then we would need to audit the courses for quality and accuracy. So this is where we would need the education committee to be reformed to function more like the project committee does, to where they would oversee that vetting process and approve courses to go live. If we're putting our stamp on them, we should have some vetting process. Once they go live, we can promote them via all means. Blended, to answer Matt's, because I talked to Matt about this a little bit before. Yes, Blended does allow course previews, so we can set certain content to be free to preview to help draw people in. There's also ways of showing ads, our own ads on the Blended platform, so we can advertise other courses, live events we have coming up. So once we get someone onto the platform, then we can hopefully continue to sell additional courses, additional training to them. And it additionally becomes a tool for incentivizing membership and gaining corporate supporters, because this is valuable training. You would pay for it anyway. Why not get a discount? Come join us. Come be a corporate supporter. Come be a member. This is especially important right now in a landscape that's dominated by AI garbage, low quality content that is of dubious accuracy. Having something that people know is trustworthy and has the OWASP stamp of approval on it is going to be worth a premium in the minds of many professionals. So if we went this route, what I'm hoping is that this spring we can actually get set up on the Blended instance, which would not cost, from what I understand, it would not cost anything up front with the discount in place that they're willing to give us. We would not start paying until people start actually taking the training courses. And then we start developing, I would immediately start working with the chapter committee and with the project committee to develop the internal training, which would both serve to that aim and help us learn more about the platform. We can also start reaching out to trainers, selecting them to begin developing first courses on the platform. Again, not full certification courses yet, but just some initial primer content. Hopefully be able to do a soft launch of the, well, we launch the internal training around summer, so that again, that's where we're paying a bit upfront, but that cost is kept pretty low. Fall, hopefully be able to soft launch some initial external courses, get some feedback on them, see how we can refine them, and then hopefully by winter, once our event season has wound down and people are stuck in their houses because of snow or what have you, if you're in the northern climes, then they're going to be hankering for something to do. And that's a great opportunity for us to do a public launch of OWASP Academy and make a big deal of it and start getting people excited about maybe taking some of these initial courses. If all goes well, then in 2025, we can revisit if the budget will allow us to begin moving on to that next phase of exploring hiring a director of education, developing certification courses, working with proctoring, etc. So that's what I have at the moment. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, one question. I
Mhm.
believe you said the resource earlier was a director of learning. You have a director of education here. Is it two
Oh,
separate
No,
people?
I'm
Is it the
sorry. I
same?
just typoed. It's the same person. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Thank
No,
you. Thank you for
just
catching that.
just making sure.
Yeah, no. Director of Learning, Director of Education. We can call him whatever, whichever one we want. But yeah, I just swapped the name inadvertently.
Thanks.
Jason, you talked a lot about the costs per seat of
Mhm.
or of the learning costs.
Yes.
You specified a few times that this does not include various other costs of course construction, course editing, and psychometrics and all that stuff. Can you speak to that for a second? Like, what would be our
Sure.
starts?
Right. Well, I can say that once we have access to the platform, it will not cost us anything to build content ourselves. We can just we can have we ourselves as a community, our trainers, staff, can just start building. We don't have any costs regarding that. If we want to get things like psychometric assessment, test writing, whatever, and this would be more for the certification angle, because certification has to have more weight behind it, obviously, than just a standard self-guided course. That's where it would run into more costs. So that would be kind of a phase 2 question. I don't have those numbers right now. I have put in an inquiry to Measure Learning to get to start the conversation, get some numbers, and see if they're willing to work with OWASP individually. Yeah, that would be where most of the additional costs would be. The only other thing I can anticipate would be if some trainer ran headlong into, I'm really struggling with turning thing, and I've been doing live training. I want to do this, but I'm really struggling turning this into a course here. Can I get help? Yes, Blended offers help with that, although I think it would be reasonable at that point if that was covered under what would normally be part of the trainer revenue. So if the trainer's developing it and they say, yeah, I would like help, I don't have those numbers, but let me just make something up and say if that costs $5,000, then even if OWASP fronts that $5,000, that should be taken out of the trainer revenue off the top. Very similar arrangement happened when I did my book. They hired an indexer, so I didn't have to do my own index, and I paid $5,000 out of my advance for that. So that's how we could cover that expense if they wanted help building the course from the professional course builders at Blended. But beyond that scenario, there would not be any upfront costs for actually constructing the courses.
So only as people start consuming, that's when the cost kicks in.
Exactly, and Blended actually changed their monthly active user definition for us specifically. So typically it would be if someone signs in, they're an active user. But because they recognize that OWASP Foundation is a nonprofit and the arrangement we have, they changed it so that once someone registers for a course, then they're counted as an active user, and then we define how long that lasts for.
So is that cost per, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt myself for a second, because as you were speaking, I realized I actually have, I don't know if it's conflict, but I have interest here that I need to disclose. Because I didn't realize until you explained this, that I might actually be interested from my work hat as well. Because we had looked at this in the past, so disclosing that as well. But would this be a per user per course cost? Like if a single user signs up to multiple courses?
So yeah, the way I believe that is how it would be calculated, but because the cost comes out every time they sign up, so let's just say it's $20, the way we charge $20, then $6 of that would go to blended. I would actually need to confirm if they would how they would handle overlapping, like multiple enrollments.
Because I expect users, assuming we have multiple high quality courses, once a user signs up, they're going to be consuming a lot of courses, or at least looking at.
Exactly. Yeah. So for the sake of the proposal, we'll assume that we're going to pay this per course, and it may be lower. I like aiming high and finding out it's less.
But we would be charging users per user, and not
per enrollment. Yeah, per enrollment. So they say, I want this course, this course, this course is 20, 40, 60.
Still high enough until we have too many courses, and then we'll worry about that down the line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Any other comments or questions for Jason?
Jason, is there a minimum spend that we have to do?
No. There is not. I did talk to them about that. So interestingly, so normally they would be charging, I have the number around here somewhere. I believe normally if there were no discounts, they'd be charging about, I want to say about something in the ballpark of 700. I can't remember the exact number. About $700 for up to 400 users, and then $2 per user after that. But they are willing to, so the arrangement that we've made with them is that they are willing to provide this outright, basically. So we're offering them a corporate supporter package, and then they're just waiving the fees up to the value of the corporate supporter package.
Okay, so just briefly, because we do have another item of business after the board meeting. Can we actually have our own domain name, like learning.owas.org, or is it going to be hosted at?
We can have it's white label, so we can brand it for us.
And it's hosted by them. We don't have to run the system.
Correct. They host, and it is deployed to handle scale. So that's one of the things they specialize is Open edX at scale. In fact, they developed some of the Kubernetes patterns that are used to allow us to run it at scale, or allow them to run it at scale.
Interesting. Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. This sounds really interesting. One note in the agenda, the link to your presentation doesn't actually work. So if you can go ahead and share this with the board as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like to watch. So I see a few comments that would probably need more discussion and more input. Generally, at least for me, it sounds like there is interest here. I don't think we're ready to vote on this, unless anyone tells me otherwise. That said, since there's no actual cost to get started on it, there's no reason for you not. I think it's completely operational to start setting it up and see if you can set it up before getting into it. Does that sound right to everybody? I don't think we actually need a vote for Jason to start working on this.
Unless they require a contract or something.
Right.
Well,
yeah. I assume there would be some manner of a contract because we have the arrangement where, again, we're offering them a corporate supporter package and they're offering us that entire value discounted off of. So we literally don't wind up paying until about 800 users. We pay nothing until about 800 users.
Yeah, I'm fine with not voting because if we do get a contract, you still have to get that sent to you, whatever time lag that is. Andrew can review it before it comes to us at the board. So yeah, I don't see any reason not to move forward on this. At least in a non-approved, we're not going to do it officially, but like we should still make forward progress on it, why not?
Okay. Well, I'll say, I'll let them know that we want to move forward and, you know, I imagine the next step will literally be, because I won't be able to gain access to building the courses until we have the agreements in place, but I can at least get that drafted and get that sent to Andrew or talk to them, get that to Andrew, and then Andrew can bring that to the board for final approval.
Right.
We could
Excellent.
e-vote this if we needed to, because then we'll have the language of the contract to look at as well, so.
Indeed. Don?
Just a quick question. Jason, these rates ongoing, or is it gonna be something like Slack? We got the prices for a year or two and then we got this huge bill.
This is standing.
Okay,
This is
just curiosity.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I will make sure it's in that it's not going to expire. Like, you know, you get this for a year. I am very aware of that, but thank you for bringing that up. I want to make
Yeah,
sure we don't end up in that nightmare again.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I worked that into the years ago when Rackspace donated hosting to OWASP. I worked into this contract is self-renewing until either party gives at least 6 months notice, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, you have the opportunity to unwind or adjust to changes. I would suggest putting language like that into the contract if they'll accept it, because that just gives both of us, you know, a heads up. If we want to leave, they get a heads up. If they want us to, you know, radically change prices or change the agreement, we get a heads up.
Balance.
Sam?
Well, that said, I'd like to table the topic and move on, since we do have an executive session to cover before the hour. But Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, just very quickly, Jason, at the beginning you mentioned there is a free trial option. So you mentioned you can stand up an instance as a free trial without
Not a free
contracts?
trial, no, just that there's no cost until we start. But we'd still want to get the agreements in place, because it would be stood up on the basis that we're developing courses that will be for students.
Okay, thanks.
So, and I also want to throw in there really quick, because that reminds me, now the nice thing about Open edX means that we are not vendor locked. We can download our content and we can take our marbles and go if we ever wanted to. I can't imagine wanting to, but we're not vendor locked at that point.
Great. Thank you for this, Jason. Can we table this motion?
Second.
All right, Matt,
Yeah, I'm good.
Ricardo,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
and yes for me. So we're tabling this motion for now and continuing forward. All that being said, is there any other business before we move to executive session? We're getting close to the hour. So I'd like to move to adjourn the public motion and move into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, it is moved and seconded to adjourn. Those in favor say aye.
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 All right,
Sure.
thank you. We're going
Just to let you know, I have only about 10 minutes left.
Yes.
Bye.
Hard stop at the top of the hour.
Yeah, so I'd like to, bye Don, bye Lauren, thanks. I'd like to move to executive session. Andrew, can you please stop the recording?